It was the first few moments of inconsistent percussion that caught your attention. Was it really that time already? Heading to the window to draw back your curtains, you count back the days. Warnings come weeks in advance thanks to the new technology. It's just up to you to remember them. Peering out, the sky has grown slightly ill, a ghost of green hue, turning the blue sky teal. Sighing, you draw the blinds closed, shut the window, and lock it. You make sure to repeat this process for each window and door in the home. The front door was stubborn as usual, but the deadbolt finally screamed into place. Feeling secure, you make your way out to the shed to check on the generator. Sure, it wasn't the best model, but it's what you could afford, and it served you well enough. It hums to life as you pull the worn cord. A scream carried with the wind. It was best to get to shelter. Now. Covering your ears, the iron slabs slam down, the vibration going straight through you. As you uncup your ears, they still ring, but you can in fact hear the electronics hiss and skitter as the lock engages. Then, all is returned to deafening silence. Groping in the absolute darkness, your hand brushes against what you hope isn't a spider's nest. Grasping whatever it is, you pull down. What could be mistaken for the thrum of a hive dispels the silence as the light bulb flickers to life and sheds its amber light into the room, slowly pulsing to the cycling of the generator up above. You still aren't sure if this is a feature or a happy accident. Illuminated in the orange sun, rows and rows of shelving units stocked with everything you'd need for a storm. It was on a hunch that you were able to beat the rush and get the best cans. People accused you of having some kind of insider knowledge, but you were just lucky. No beans for you this time. You had peaches to enjoy like royalty. Moving to the far wall, you blow away the layer of dust from the signal board and coat your hand as you clear the bulging screen. Your pant legs make for impromptu towels as your focus is on the flickering lights. To your relief, all the lights are green, though you chew your lower lip in agitation when you notice your computer is still on. Nothing to be done about it now, though. Besides, it doesn't draw that much power, and the automatic backup would save your skin in the event of an outage. Tapping the monitor to the side of the board, it flickers and displays the message, connecting, and 3 pulsing dots. You jump as the ventilation system kicks. The roar of the fan hums in the same beat as the lights. The heart of the whole bunker was now alive. Where the air had been clammy upon your initial descent, it has become much more dry and bearable. You may have gone into some debt with this entire setup, but it was better to be scared in comfort than not. A subtle electronic beep informs you that it was ready, and so you flick the switch. Hissing to life, you had eyes on the outside. Everything is cast in beer bottle green, but after some fiddling with the contrast and exposure, it was like you were out there. Your brow furrows as you take in the sights of the world beyond your little tomb. It was midday when you first went down, but even within that short span, one could now confuse it with midnight. You manually cycle through the feeds, several rooms of the house, and some other spots along the property. On the last feed, you thankfully catch sight of a neighbor heading down into their own bunker, the old codger nearly bumping his head as his rusted doors come down. Setting the system to cycle, you nod and head over to the row of goodies. Opening a tool cart, you withdraw one of the many, many can openers. Some may call you insane, but you'd rather not end up a literary trope. Now, with hands full of peaches, you grab your radio and plonk yourself down into the cot in the corner. Gingerly, you hoist the radio onto your stomach as you lay back and indulge in the cloying sweet syrup of the fruits. Barely held together with duct tape after you dropped it while cleaning last season, the old thing still works. You just need to listen for the pops of sound other than static and not breathe on the dial once you get it set. But it works. Adjusting the device, you pause every once in a while not only to listen for the station but also for anything amiss. Thankfully, you're greeted with the sound of the storm above, significantly muffled due to the layers. Taking a glance through the cycling cameras, you think you spy something in the backyard, but a flash of lightning reveals it to be a misshapen log. The wind screams through the small cracks that do exist in your barricade, and the front porch camera has been rendered useless. You could swear it wasn't the wind that got it, but it wasn't your concern now. You can always go get it after the storm has passed. Holding back from striking the radio, you, at last, get the thing tuned to the weather station. You had expected some kind of bossa track to be playing on loop, broken up by the need for an announcer to relay updates, but the voice that came through made it clear that wasn't going to be an option. You had never been a fan of her. It. The machine's voice. Artificial enthusiasm was meant to be comforting and reassuring, but it just came across as patronizing and a little unsettling. Then, there was the implication that this voice carried. That the storm was large enough that even those with means had to vacate their property and seek shelter underground. With some mild agitation, you set the radio down on the lumpy mattress and grabbed the book from under your cot. Flipping through the pages, you find the appropriate cipher and wait for the message to start over once more. In the time between messages, you hazard a glance at the screen's end. Your stomach drops and turns icy cold. Pinpricks of light swirling like snow. A bone-snapping crack above. You quickly turn the volume almost to silent. You hold your breath. Count the seconds between the sharp noises and the rack-rattling drones. You don't hear the humming of the generator anymore, but the lights are still on. A counter-frequency, destructive interference. Your lungs start to scream for air. They burn, they tighten. Once you know you are safe, you oblige them. You can hear the generator once again. Taking this moment, you chance the volume a step above a thought, but still quieter than a whisper, and start to decode the letters and numbers.
Attention. The Weather Service advises all residents to seek shelter immediately. Incoming storm is predicted to be a Category 5B. This message will repeat until an all clear can be issued. Stay tuned for further details. This message will now repeat after the required radio silence.
Then, just as it said, the message cuts to music and starts once more. Your stomach growls. Oh, right. You forgot to actually eat anything filling today, and a can of peaches isn't going to cut it. Setting the radio on the table near your cot, you browse along the shelves for anything that sounded remotely edible. Settling on some beans and canned bread, you absent-mindedly drum along the edge of the lid as you weigh some options. Cold beans and bread are not a great feeling, but the microwave may make too much noise, and it was being testy the last time, so despite the groaning of your standards, you eat the less than room temperature food. It wasn't the worst meal you've had, but it was by no means the best. Nevertheless, you would be filled and that much more likely to survive this ordeal. While the mealy legumes squish lazily in your mouth, you feel a chuckle rise up inside you. You can't help but recall Mrs. Johnson, who got stuck in her shelter for about a week before the authorities came to take census. Thankfully, she was fine, or you wouldn't have been laughing as much, but it was the talk of the town for about a month or so. Taking the rubbery loaf of bread, you scraped the inside of the can for the bit of gravy that remained and washed up in the nearby sink. Now, was that the thunder, or your protesting stomach that groaned? Given some of the cans shifted and rattled, it was safe to assume it was the storm. Sitting on the edge of the cot, you just listen. And there was a dark beauty to storms. Something that could only really be appreciated when not in one, of course. Feeling your mind drift, you aim to busy yourself and rise from your cot once more, setting out to reorganize the things in your little hidey hole. There wasn't much to do, just needed to keep your hands busy. About to travel along the dusty road of nostalgia, a melody stops that trip before it can start. You freeze in place with hands still barely touching a jar of olives as you listen to the notes. Time slows. You can feel the cold air of the stone floor wrapping itself around your legs as you decipher each bar. 3 notes send you into a hot-faced, shameful giggle as the radio crackles. Not risking another scare, you head back and turn the damn thing off. It wasn't silent, however. The storm still raged just above your head. Now, having touched every can and jar, you paced along rows of shelves, trying not to succumb to a growing dread. A remedy was found as you brushed the dust off the monitor and keyboard of the wall computer, and wait for the relic to live once again. It clicks and beeps and expels plumes of particulates and webbing. A quite disgruntled cellar spider rapidly skitters out from behind the monitor and up the wall. The light bulb swings gently on its cord and flickers rapidly as the electronic device draws power. The amber light is cast away as the white glow of the screen yawns and becomes whole. Tickling the keys, several programs sluggishly start to open. You look once again at the camera feed. Nothing. The only working cameras were those left inside. Through the office window, you can just barely make out the west wall camera being flung into the consuming shadows. Sweetly, the computer chirps and your attention is once more brought back to the communications at hand. Mom and Dad were safe in their own shelters, same as many of your friends. No longer feeling as isolated and vulnerable, you spend the next few hours chatting away. Confusing one chat for another, you do have to spend a few awkward moments explaining to your folks why you said the things you did and why you keep calling yourself Mole Rat. During this time, a new message pops up, marked with a red exclamation point. Opening it up, it was a message from the authorities. They were cautioning folks from using any electronics during the storm. It was an abnormal occurrence, to be sure. Concerned, you ask your conversation partners, and they all declare they haven't gotten any such messages. Mom makes a good point. You must be in the thick of it. Nodding to yourself, you say your goodbyes and turn the machine back off. A glance at the signal board, sadly, indicates that your home above has lost power. But that does mean that the computer there is now turned off as well. Grabbing a candle and matches, you plunge yourself back into the abyss. Much like the first men, fire was your only companion as you turned the radio off as well. You retire to the cot and rest the back of your head on the thing only a pillow by name. The sheets of the cot are scratchy, too hot and too cold at the same time. Horrible. But they cover you. A cold draft worms its way around your neck as you fight back the urge to toss and turn. Lulled down fast by the organic thrum of the storm topside, you feel your eyelids growing heavier and heavier. Your breathing slows to the rhythm above you. And soon, without much protest, sweet, slumbering oblivion. You rose quicker than you had fallen once you heard the signal of the all-clear. In your velvet of sleep, you must have accidentally hit the radio as you hear the voices of people describing in detail the devastation done by the storm and those lost to it. Thankfully, not hearing anyone you had a passing interest in, you silenced the radio once more, and without its glow, you noticed that in your refuge the generator had died. Once again, you grope in the shadows until your hand brushes the smooth underside of your doors. Squealing in protest to lift their heft, your bunker doors open. Unearthed, you stretch and give silent thanks for the space to move. And move you do through your home, which, strangely but graciously, appears to be untouched by the storm. Not even a speck of dust was out of place. A chilled wind carries with it from beyond your domicile the sound of conversations bright and dark. Moving towards the noise, you linger in your now open front door. Outside you can see the devastation wrought by the storm. Trees upturned with roots frozen in gnarled claws. Stone and soil marked with deep trenches in that foul, odorous sludge. The hollow shells of your neighbors standing like headstones in a graveyard, their clothing that still clung to their shambling forms, flittering in the same breeze. Local authorities were rounding up those with some semblance of sense left in them, and grounding those without. You turn away as Mrs. Johnson leers at you from where she stood, a bile-dripping grin etching slowly into her leathery skin, before a bullet snuffs out the last remaining light in those cloudy pearls. There is a sick thankfulness brewing in you, and the guilt of survival. You may have slept, but you are far from rested. So you close your door and draw the blinds once again before you head upstairs to draw yourself a bath. Plunging into the lobster-reddening liquid, your muscles sigh and your head fills with fluttering butterflies and warm cotton. The comfort of the liquid blanket and steam shepherd you back off to sleep. Another storm, another day, another siren. Your eyes shoot open. You are still in your bunker. The lights have gone out. Your bunker is shaking as the storm rages and howls outside, but your blood freezes not for that, but for it. A siren was the most ill of omens. People report the weather when able. Artificial voices when people are unable. Intermediate tones played through shortwave radio when those artificial voices cannot be maintained. But a siren. The shaking of the bunker ceases. Everything is still. You strain your hearing against the deafening silence. Against the encompassing nothing. You hold your breath to hear anything at all. The doors to your bunker squeal.